One lie. $70,000 gone in a heartbeat. I thought it was the end of everything I'd worked for. But I had no idea that lie my own son's lie would be the thing that shattered my old life and forced me to build something I never thought I could have. Freedom. Asterisk, I never thought a lie would free me. But it wasn't mine. It was my son's. It started on a Tuesday afternoon when I was sipping burnt office coffee and staring at an email I didn't want to open. The subject line was innocuous. Vacation request. Confirmed. Except I hadn't made any vacation plans. My son had. Jacob was 19. Too clever, too restless, and too good at convincing people he knew what he was doing. He'd grown up watching me count every penny, measuring every choice against our shrinking bank balance. So when he said he'd handle the summer, I foolishly thought he meant a part-time job, not a trip that would cost more than I'd saved in a year. When I finally opened the email, my stomach dropped. 2 plane tickets, 5-star resort, 10 days in Santorini, a trip worth $14,700, booked under my name. I remember gripping the edge of the desk so hard my knuckles went white. My co-workers were laughing about some spreadsheet error across the aisle. Ordinary, everyday sounds. Meanwhile, my entire world tilted sideways. Jacob swore he'd figured it out, that it was a surprise, that it wouldn't cost me a cent. He said words like investment and content deal. He spoke fast, too fast, like someone rehearsing a lie. By the time I checked my credit card account, the damage was already there. 5 charges, 2 pending. My entire savings, the little buffer between us and disaster, was gone. $70,000. $70,000 that I'd scraped together over 8 brutal years of double shifts and sleepless nights. I didn't scream. That was the strangest part. I went silent. That night, the house was too still. Jacob hovered in the hallway, eyes bright but trembling. "Mum," he whispered, "trust me." But I couldn't. For 3 days I lived in a fog of paperwork, phone calls, and the acidic taste of betrayal. The bank wouldn't reverse the charges without a fraud report. But how do you report your own son? The breaking point came when I found the black envelope in the kitchen drawer. It wasn't addressed to me. Inside was a printed itinerary, not just for Santorini, but for a yacht charter, a private photographer, and something called Skyfall Experience. It sounded like luxury. It sounded like someone else's life. And then I noticed the initials at the bottom. AL, that wasn't my son's name. Something in me went cold. Jacob wasn't just lying about a vacation. He was hiding something bigger. On the 4th night, I followed him. He thought he was clever. He wasn't. I watched from the driver's seat as he slipped into the back entrance of an upscale club downtown, one I'd only ever passed by on my way to night shifts. Through the tinted windows I saw him meet a man twice his age. Sharp suit, wristwatch that cost more than my car. They didn't shake hands. They clasped forearms. Like partners. I didn't sleep that night. By dawn, I'd gone through his laptop. He'd left it unlocked, arrogant or careless. I still don't know which. There were emails, contracts, wire transfers, and a phrase I didn't understand at first. Asset liquidation agreement. Then I saw my name on the documents. Not Jacob's. Mine. He'd used my information, my savings, my credit, even the equity on the house, all for some glittering dream that wasn't his alone. I should have confronted him then. That something held me back. Maybe it was the cold, sharp instinct that told me yelling wouldn't save me. That this wasn't just a teenage mistake. This was a game, and I was already on the board. I started to play. I stopped making the minimum payments on the house. Stopped feeding the beast of bills and interest. It wasn't an act of surrender. It was a pivot. Every dollar was a chain. I decided to cut the chains. For the first time in my life, I let everything fall. Creditors called. Collection letters arrived. But instead of panic, I felt a strange lightness. The house I'd spent 20 years protecting wasn't mine anymore. Not really. My life was a tower built on sand, and Jacob's lie was the tide. When I finally sat him down, he looked more scared than I'd ever seen him. "I can fix it," he said. "No," I answered softly. "You can't." The man in the suit, the contract, the fake vacation, they were all pieces of something he didn't fully understand. But I did now. It wasn't just about money. It was about control. I began liquidating everything myself. Quietly, carefully. I sold the house before the bank could seize it. Cleared the accounts. I didn't tell Jacob where the money went. I didn't tell anyone. Then I disappeared for a while. Not the way people vanish in movies, with fake passports and new identities. No, I simply stepped out of the life I'd been breaking my back to maintain. I cancelled the utilities, terminated the lease on the car, cut off every auto debit that chained me to a past I didn't want anymore. I took what was left, a fraction of what once was, and drove north. Jacob tried to call. For weeks, his messages shifted from anger to pleading to silence. But I didn't answer, not because I hated him, but because to build something new, I had to stop being the net that caught him every time he fell. The world didn't end when I let go of $70,000. It expanded. I rented a room in a coastal town where no one knew my name. I worked mornings at a bakery and spent evenings walking along the cliffs, letting the wind tear the noise out of my head. I stopped checking my credit score, stopped apologizing for things I hadn't broken. And then one morning, he showed up. I recognized the shape of him before I saw his face. Tall, slouched, carrying that mix of defiance and shame. He didn't come to yell. He didn't come to lie. He came to tell me the truth. The man in the suit had promised him everything. An investment venture, a way to change our lives. Jacob had believed him. Or maybe he'd wanted to. The trip was a lure. The contracts a trap. And when the man disappeared with the bulk of the money, Jacob realized too late what it cost. He expected me to hate him. I didn't. But I didn't forgive him, either. Forgiveness is easy. Trust is harder. It took months. Months of silence, of rebuilding, of learning what it meant to exist without fear of losing everything at any moment. Jacob worked to pay off what he could, piece by piece, not because I asked him to, but because he wanted to. I thought the story would end there. Neat. But life doesn't work like that. One evening, a letter arrived with no return address. Inside, a photograph. A yacht. The same one from the Santorini itinerary. On the deck, the man in the suit, holding a glass of champagne, smiling like the devil who knows no one will touch him. On the back, a single line, "Not over." I didn't panic. I folded the letter, placed it in a drawer I didn't open again. Some storms pass, others linger at the edge of the map. But I wasn't the same woman who trembled over an email anymore. Jacob learned that too. The lie that shattered everything didn't destroy me. It burned down a prison I hadn't realized. I'd built myself. And somewhere between the ashes and the salt air of a quiet town, I learned that losing $70,000 was the price of getting my life back. The story isn't clean. It isn't pretty. But it's mine.